I want to begin, my dear, with the question. Because in 50 years of carrying this secret, it was the question I feared more than anything in the world, and when it finally came, it came not from a solicitor or a doctor or a long-lost stranger at my door, but from my own granddaughter, sitting on the end of my bed on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, holding a letter she should never have found. She looked up at me with her grandfather's eyes, and she said, "Nana, who is Alina? And why does this letter say she's my mother's real mum?" Now I want you to imagine, if you can, what it is to have a secret of 50 years pulled out of the dark in a single sentence by someone you love. My heart did not race, my dear. It stopped. It simply stopped. But to understand why I did what I did next, you must come back with me, all the way to a snowy night in the winter of 1971. My name is Vivian, though my grandchildren call me Nana, and I am 81 years old. I live now in a small whitewashed cottage in a quiet corner of Devon, with my roses and my view of the hills and the great many memories that a long life leaves behind, like shells on a beach after the tide goes out. I have been a widow for 9 years. My husband Henry was a country doctor for 40 years, a gentle, careful man, and he is the only other living soul who ever knew the whole of what I am about to tell you. He took the secret to his grave, as we had always promised each other we would, and I had every intention of taking it to mine. The wardrobe, you see, was my mistake. I should never have kept the letter, but some things you cannot bring yourself to burn, even when you know you ought to. Let me tell you about that wardrobe, because it is where the story begins and where, 50 years later, it nearly ended. It is a great dark mahogany thing that belonged to Henry's mother, far too big for the little box room, and at the very back of it, behind the winter coats and the box of Henry's old medical journals, there was a shoebox. And in that shoebox, wrapped in tissue, there was a small knitted baby's bonnet, white wool gone cream with age, and a single letter and a photograph. For 50 years they lay there in the dark, and for 50 years I told no one, and I thought no one would ever know. I was wrong, but I'm getting ahead of myself again. An old woman's memory runs where it likes. Let me take you to the snow. The winter of 1971 was a hard one. Henry and I were young then, in our late 20s, newly settled in the village where he had taken over the country practice. We had been married 4 years, and we wanted children very badly, my dear, more than I can easily put into words, and they had not come. Month after month, year after year, they had not come, and I had begun to make a quiet peace with the idea that perhaps they never would, the way you make peace with a long winter. And then, on a night in February when the snow lay thick over the lanes and the whole world had gone silent and white, there was a knock at our door. It was a girl. 18 years old, though she looked younger, soaked through and shivering, with a cardboard suitcase and a belly that told its own story even under her thin coat. Her name was Alina. She had come on the last bus from the town, she said, and walked the final 2 miles through the snow because she had nowhere else to go, and she had heard somehow that the doctor and his wife were kind. She was in labour, my dear. She was 18, alone in labour in the snow on our doorstep. We took her in, of course. What else does a person do? Henry, with his doctor's calm, set about the business of bringing a baby into the world, for there was no getting to the cottage hospital that night, not through those lanes, not in that snow. And I sat with Alina through the long hours, holding her hand, wiping her brow and listening to her story between the pains. She was not a wicked girl, my dear, whatever the world said about such girls in those days, and the world said a great deal and very little of it kind. She was a frightened girl who had loved a young man who had gone away, and whose family had told her, in the cold way families could in those years, that she was no longer welcome under their roof, and that the child must be dealt with and never spoken of. She had run rather than give the baby up to strangers through the official channels, because she had heard such things about those places, and not all of what she'd heard was untrue. The baby was born just before dawn, as the sky outside the window turned from black to the strange luminous grey that only snow can make. A girl. A perfect, furious, red-faced little girl with a cry like a kettle coming to the boil, and I held her while Henry tended to Alina, and my dear, I will be honest with you now, across all these years. In the moment I held that child, something happened in my heart that I had no word for and have struggled to find a word for ever since. I had wanted a baby for 4 long years, and there one was, in my arms, on the morning the snow stopped. Alina stayed with us for 11 days. I want to linger on those days, my dear, because they were among the strangest and most precious of my whole life, and because they are the reason I could keep the promise I kept. The snow held us all in. The lanes were blocked, the telephone lines were down for the best part of a week, and the 3 of us, Henry, Alina and I, were sealed into that little cottage with a newborn baby and a great log fire and nowhere in the world to be. Henry would go out each morning on foot, his black bag over his shoulder, to tend the other snowed-in families who needed a doctor, and Elena and I would be left together with the baby, the two of us learning her together. Elena fed her those first days while she still could, and I learned from Elena how to wind her, how to bath her in the kitchen sink with the water just so, how to soothe her in the small hours. We did not speak much of what was coming. We simply tended the child, side by side, two women and a baby, and the white silence pressing on the windows. I have wondered since whether Elena was teaching me on purpose, handing the baby over an inch at a time, so that when the day came she could let go knowing the child was in hands that already knew her. I think she was. She was wiser at 18 than I was at 28. And in those 11 days I watched a frightened girl come to a terrible, brave decision. She could not keep the baby. She had nothing, no home, no money, no family that would have her, and she was clear-eyed enough, even at 18, to know that love alone does not feed a child or keep it warm. But the thought of handing her daughter to an institution, of never knowing where she went or whether she was loved, was more than she could bear. And so on the 11th day she sat at my kitchen table, this same table I still have, my dear, in this very cottage, for I could never part with it, and she took my two hands in hers, and she said the words that shaped the rest of my life. "Vivian," she said, "I have watched you with her, I have watched your face. You love her already, I can see it. Will you take her? Will you raise her as your own and love her and never let her feel for one single day that she wasn't wanted, because she was wanted. She was always wanted, just not by people who were able." And then she said the thing that became my promise. "But you must never tell her about me, not ever. Because if she grows up knowing she was given away, she will spend her whole life feeling like something that was given away. Let her be yours, wholly yours. Let me be a stranger she never knew. That is the only gift I have left to give her, the gift of never knowing she was a gift at all. Now, my dear, I want you to understand the times. It was 1971 in a small Devon village. Things were done quietly then that could never be done now, and Henry, as the doctor, had it within his power to do them. A birth, registered with our names, a baby who became, in the eyes of the law and the village and the world, the long-awaited daughter of Dr. and Mrs. Henry Pierce. We moved that spring to a practice 40 miles away, where no one had known me as a childless woman, and we arrived as a young family with a baby girl, and not one soul ever questioned it. We named her Catherine. And Elena took the train south, with the cardboard suitcase and one photograph of the daughter she would never hold again, and she vanished out of our lives as she had asked to, like a footprint filling with snow. I raised Catherine, my dear. I raised her, and I loved her with a fierceness that I think only a woman who waited 4 years and prayed every night could understand. She was my whole world, and I will tell you something I have never admitted to a living soul. There were nights in those first years when I would stand over her cot, and a cold fear would grip me that someone would come and take her, that a knock would sound at the door the way it had on that snowy night, and someone would say there had been a mistake. She was not mine, hand her back. The fear faded as the years went on and no knock came, but it never quite left me, my dear, not entirely. I think that is the secret price of a kept secret. You love all the harder for the small cold fear that lives underneath it. Perhaps that is why I loved her so very fiercely. Perhaps every mother who has ever held a child she was frightened of losing knows exactly the love I mean. She was my whole world. I was there for her first steps and her first day at school and her first heartbreak. I sat up with her through fevers and exam nerves and the long, terrible night her father, my Henry, was diagnosed with the illness that eventually took him. She is 53 years old now, my Catherine, with children of her own, and there has never been a single hour of her life in which she was not, in every way that I believe matters, my daughter. I did not carry her, but I do not believe that is what makes a mother. I have come to believe, after 81 years, that a mother is the person who shows up every day for all the days and keeps showing up. And by that measure, my dear, I have been her mother since the morning the snow stopped. But the letter, always in the dark of the wardrobe, the letter, because Elena wrote to me once 6 months after she left. A single letter, posted from a city I won't name, with no return address. In it she thanked me. She told me she had found work and was beginning again, and she asked just one thing, that if the day ever came when Catherine was grown and ill, and might need to know about her medical history to save her own life or a child's, then the truth might be told, but only then, only if it was a matter of life and health, and never simply to satisfy curiosity or to ease my own conscience. The truth is for emergencies, she wrote, not for comfort. And she enclosed the one photograph I had taken of her holding the baby. Before she left, for she wanted me to have it, she said, so that one day, if the truth ever had to be told, Catherine would at least know her first mother's face. I should have burned that letter. I meant to 100 times. But it was the last trace of a brave girl who had given me everything, and I could not do it. So I wrapped it with the little bonnet, and I hid it in the dark, and I told myself it would never see the light again. There were near misses, my dear, over the years, and each one took 10 years off my life. When Catherine was a teenager, she went through a school project on family trees, and she came home one evening and asked, quite innocently, why she didn't look like either of us. She had Elena's colouring, you see, dark, where Henry and I were both fair, and I felt the floor tilt beneath me, and I said something light about a great aunt and changed the subject and lay awake the whole night after. When she was carrying her first child, the midwife asked about family medical history, and I had to produce from memory the few details Elena had given me in those 11 days, and pass them off as my own family's and pray. And worst of all, my dear, on the day my Henry was dying, he gripped my hand and he whispered, does she know? Should we tell her? And I had to decide in a hospital corridor with my husband slipping away, whether to honour the promise or unburden us both. I kept the promise. I let Henry go with it still kept between us because it was Elena's to release and not ours, and I have never been sure from that day to this whether I did right. That is the thing about a secret kept out of love, my dear. You are never quite sure. You carry the not being sure right alongside the secret, and it weighs every bit as much. For 50 years it didn't come out, and then my granddaughter came to stay. Her name is Molly, and she is 19, the very age Elena had been, and she is the sort of bright, curious, kind-hearted girl who pokes into everything, which is exactly as a young person should be. She had come to keep me company for a fortnight that summer, and she had offered, sweet thing, to help me sort out the cottage, because at 81 I can no longer reach the high shelves or shift the heavy boxes, and so it was Molly who climbed up to clear the top of the great mahogany wardrobe, and Molly who pushed right to the back behind the medical journals, a shoebox tied with ribbon. And being 19 and curious and trusting in the way the young still are, she opened it, and she read the letter, and she came and sat on the end of my bed, white as the snow in the story, and she asked me the question I had feared for half a century. Nana, who is Elena, and why does this letter say she's my mother's real mum? I want to tell you, my dear, that I had a wise and ready answer. I did not. I sat in my bed and I looked at this child holding 50 years of my life in her 2 hands, and the first thing I felt, God forgive me, was anger, not at Molly, but at myself, at the wardrobe, at my own weakness in keeping the wretched letter. And the second thing I felt, rising up behind the anger like the grey dawn behind the snow, was something I had not expected at all. It was relief, after 50 years, my dear. Relief, because a secret, you see, is a very heavy thing to carry alone, and I was so very tired and so very old, and there is a part of every person that longs before the end to set the heaviest things down. But it was not my secret to set down. That was the trouble. It was Elena's and Catherine's far more than it was ever mine. And Elena had been so clear. The truth is for emergencies, not for comfort. Was this an emergency, or was a frightened 19-year-old simply about to blunder into the most delicate matter in our family's history, with the best of intentions and no idea of the damage she might do? So I did the only thing I have ever truly trusted in 81 years of living. I told the truth, but I told it slowly, and I told it with love, and I gave Molly the whole of it, the snow, the knock at the door, the brave girl with the cardboard suitcase, the promise. I did not dress it up, and I did not leave anything out, and when I had finished, Molly was crying, and I was crying, and she crawled up the bed the way she had as a little girl, and she put her head on my shoulder, and she said, so Mum doesn't know. Mum's spent her whole life not knowing. And I said, no, my love, she doesn't. And Molly said the thing that I have turned over in my mind every day since. She said, then it's not really yours to keep secret anymore, Nana, or mine, it's hers. Out of the mouths of the young, my dear, out of the mouths of the young. We sat together for a long while, Molly and I, and we talked it through, the two of us, an old woman and a young one, the way the women in a family ought to. And we agreed together that the secret could not go back in the box. Not because secrets must always be told. I don't believe that, and I'll tell you why at the end, but because this one had been found, and a thing that is found cannot be unfound. And Catherine deserved to learn the truth from her mother's own lips, gently, with love, and not to stumble upon it herself one day in a shoebox after I was gone, with no one left alive to explain it or to hold her while she wept. I told Catherine the following week. I asked her to come alone, and I sat her at the old kitchen table, the same table where Elena had once held my hands, and I told her everything, just as I had told Molly. I watched 53 years of certainty crack open in my daughter's face, and it was the hardest hour of my long life, harder even than burying Henry. There was shock. There was a terrible, reeling moment where she looked at me and said, so you're not actually, and could not finish the sentence, and I thought, this is it. This is the moment I lose her, this is the price of the truth. But then, my dear, then my daughter looked at me, really looked, and she said, you sat up with me every night I was ill. You taught me to read, you were there when Dad died. You've been my mum for 53 years. And she came round the table and she knelt down by my chair, this woman of 53, and she put her arms around me and she said, "You're my mum." A piece of paper doesn't change that. It just means there was a brave girl in the snow I owe my whole life to. And I'd like, if she's still alive, to find her, not to replace you, never to replace you, to thank her. We did find her, my dear. It took some months and the help of the records Henry had quietly kept, but we found Alina, 71 years old now, living in a small flat near Stirling, a retired schoolteacher who had never married and never had another child. I wrote to her first, a careful letter, not wishing to frighten an old woman with a ghost from the snow, and she wrote back by return of post, in a hand that shook the way mine shakes now, and her letter said only this: "I have thought about her every single day for 50 years. Is she well? Is she happy? Tell me she is happy." And I was able to write back the 4 words I had waited half a century to be allowed to say: "She is. Come and see." The day they met, my dear, I shall carry with me into whatever comes after this life. We arranged it at my cottage with the roses out, and I sat Alina in the front room and went to fetch Catherine from the kitchen. And when I brought my daughter through, and the 2 women saw each other for the first time in 53 years, the 18-year-old in the snow and the baby in her arms, both of them grown old now, neither of them said a word at first. They simply looked. And then Catherine crossed the room and knelt down in front of Alina's chair, the way she had once knelt in front of mine, and she said, "Thank you for my life, and thank you for giving it to her." And the 2 of them held each other and wept, and I stood in the doorway, my dear, the woman in between, and I wept too. But they were not sad tears, not one of them. The meeting between those 2 women, the one who gave my Catherine life and the one who gave her a life, is a story too large and too tender to fit at the end of this one. But I could not leave it out altogether, because it is the whole point. And I will tell you that Alina wept when she understood that the promise had been kept, that Catherine had grown up wanted and loved, and had never once felt like something given away. "That was all I wanted," she said, holding both my hands again after 50 years, her hands old now like mine. "That was the only gift I had to give, and you kept it for me. You kept it the whole time. Now, my dear, here is the lesson, and it is not a simple one, because I have lived too long to believe in simple lessons. People will tell you that the truth must always come out, that secrets are poison, that honesty is always the kindest thing. And people will tell you the opposite, that some things are better left buried, that what you don't know can't hurt you. And after 81 years, I believe they are both wrong and both a little right, and that the real truth lies in a harder place between them. A secret kept out of love, to protect someone who is not yet able to bear a thing that can be a gift. The way Alina's silence was a gift, the way my silence protected a little girl from feeling unwanted through all her tender years. But a secret must never become a prison. It must never be kept past the moment the person it concerns is grown and strong and able to hold it. The kindness is in the keeping for a season. The cruelty is in the keeping forever, until they find it in a shoebox when you are no longer there to explain. I kept Catherine's secret for 50 years, and I do not regret a single one of those years, because in every one of them she was simply, wholly, unquestioningly my daughter. And that certainty was the foundation she stood on to become the strong woman who could, in the end, bear the truth. The secret was the scaffolding, my dear, and you take the scaffolding down when the building can stand on its own, not before, but never ever much later than that. And as for what makes a family, well, I think you already know what I believe, for I've said it more than once tonight. It is not blood, though blood is a precious thing. It is not a name on a certificate, it is the showing up. It is the night feeds and the fevers and the long, slow, patient love of all the ordinary days, the love that asks for nothing and keeps no account. Alina was Catherine's mother, and so was I. There is room, my dear, in a single life for more than one kind of mother, and a child loved by 2 is not divided. She is doubled. I have watched my Catherine these past months, getting to know the brave girl from the snow, and I have not seen her love for me diminish by so much as a feather's weight. If anything, my dear, it has grown, for now she understands what it cost and what it was worth, and that a woman can choose to be a mother just as surely as she can be born one. The truth, told gently and in its proper season, did not break my family. It made it larger. There are more of us now to sit around the old kitchen table, and that, I have decided, is the only true measure of whether a secret was kept for love or for fear. If this story has touched you, and perhaps reminded you of a secret in your own family, or a question you've been afraid to ask, then let me leave you with this. Don't be afraid of the truth, but do be wise about its timing and gentle in its telling, and always, always tell it with love. And if there is someone in your life you owe your thanks to, a brave soul who gave you something you can never repay, perhaps don't wait 50 years as we so nearly did. Tell them now, while there is still snow enough left in the winter. Thank you for sitting with me, my dear. Sleep well. Good night.